One of the things that I've trying to be thinking, okay, how can I encourage people to get started who probably don't have a
Mm.
history of activism or what I like to call getting off the couch? Because anybody can sign a petition, but that
Yep.
only works when you submit a petition to someone who's reasonable. If we're going increasingly to an unreasonable government who's unwilling to listen, petitions are going to be far less
Yep.
meaningful. So one of the things that I thought was to start a diary, and what better time than now to write your personal stories about how the corona stuff has impacted you and the lockdown and what you've seen and what you've thought and just to record stories, because I remember the first time I ever read Anne Frank's diary from the Second World War. She was a German teenager who was hidden by a family and eventually got busted, and she was murdered in one of the concentration camps. The impact of that little girl's diary, was such a big eye opener for me.
Yep.
And I think that's what it's going to take. Not so much the big stories, but everyone's little individual stories coming together so
Yep.
that we can build a community that when the time comes to stand, we can stand.
Yep.
Because I think we're at that balancing point. We're on the knife's edge. We're not quite done yet. But if we don't get ourselves moving over the next couple of years, it will be over.
Yep.
And there won't be a lot to bring us back.
No, absolutely. Values of story is important. The other side knows the place of story. I mean, postmodernism is all about, there's no meta narrative. There's only your own personal narrative, your own little story. But yeah, they're important. They have their place. So yeah, whether it's the Rona, as you say, Sky News is often good. In the evenings, they'll bring in, a guy has a gymnasium or something, or a restaurant cafe, and how his business has been absolutely decimated by these lockdowns and all the rest. Just hearing their stories is really moving stuff. Last night, I think, both Peter Credlin and Paul Murray, one gal from Sydney flew in from the U.S. Her dad is dying, I think, in Victoria. But because of the two idiot governments in the two states, right, neither one wants to budge. Oh, you can't go from here to there. Who cares if your dad is dying and he's only got days to go? So they're making it hard on her. Eventually, they conceded and they said, "Well, look, you get one of these fancy flights for $7,500. You can maybe fly in, see your dad before he dies." So there's evidently some mercy flights ministry. I forget what it's called. Some gal heard of the story. I think it was on the front page of the Daily Telegraph or something. She said, "Look, we will fly you from Sydney down to wherever in Victoria at our own expense so you can see your dad before he dies." Now that's I can talk all I want about the stupid lockdown that we have, the studies that are showing, in fact, that lockdowns are actually counterproductive. They actually cause more harm than good. But getting a few stories like her, same thing with Queensland, people dying or people trying to go to their own wedding, or a child is born and the parents and the mother even couldn't even see the baby for the first week because of these idiot border closures. So those kind of stories, that's going to have an impact. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Write down, record, podcast your own story, whatever it may be, whether it's about the Rona, could be about your own life. A couple of years ago, I finally wrote my testimony down. 4-part, 10,000 word article, How I Became a Christian in 1971. In fact, in about a month and a half, it'll be a half century, 50 years ago in August, that I became a Christian, right? A bummed out, burned out hippie, high on drugs. Look, a lot of my friends didn't make it. Either died of suicide or drug overdoses. I should have been the same. So whenever I speak, I talk about my story and I say, why me? Why was I spared? All my friends, most of them didn't make it. That's God's grace, obviously, but part of the story is 50 years ago, God knew, there's this guy named Joshua. One day you're actually going to teach him. One day he's going to start doing these really fantastic podcasts. He's going to give you a ring and say, Bill, you want to do a thing. So for that reason, that's part of the reason why I was not successful in my suicide attempt. So God's in charge of the big picture. We have to be faithful with the little. So yeah, telling those stories, that's a big part of sharing the word. Sure, if you want to do the worldview stuff, the apologetics, the whole intellectual debate, that's important as well. And some people will only be reached intellectually, but probably a lot more with just, your personal story.
So I want to close by you've been. I build you as the most hated activist in Victoria. I know some of the things that have happened to you and have happened to your family. And I recently was in contact with one of my members who was saying that they have a history of depression, and this stuff that's going on is weighing them down, and they're scared that they might have another breakdown.
Yep.
And if people are thinking about moving into that space where they start to speak out or they start to do those things, they're going to get some pushback and they're going to get attacked. And some of that attack may happen from their neighbours, family, and friends.
Yeah.
And so, as we close, I was just wondering if maybe you could give us some insight and some tips
Yep.
about how you've managed to keep going this long. I know your faith plays a very high degree, a high role in your ability to do that. But there's also that human side of you that gets hurt like the rest of us. I like to say Jesus may have been God, but he still bled.
Yeah. Yes.
And so how we're going to probably see more of that. And so how can we start to manage that and move through that?
Yep. Now, very good question indeed. And yeah, I obviously agree. The faith component is really what makes it possible. Knowing God is there with you. It is a spiritual battle, so you pray. In fact, I know I've got people right now praying for me, right? People all around the world. Even though I lost my 4,500 Facebook friends, I still got other connections. So just knowing right now, as we're doing this interview, somebody in maybe America or London or somewhere is praying. So that's got to help big time. So yeah, look, I'm a human being. I don't like the hate. I don't like the abuse. I don't like the death threats. And I get all three. Certainly the hate mail on a very regular basis. It's not fun. I'd rather sit home, read a book. You can see a few of them behind me, and there's a whole lot more. In fact, I did a video once. You can find it on YouTube. If you want to have a tour of my library, all 7,500 books, you can check that out. But anyway, that's me. I'd rather sit home, read a book, have a cat on my lap. My cat is there on the floor right now. She's very upset. I got a laptop on my body. Where's the cat supposed to go? Oh, Joshua's fault. Sorry, Possum. Anyway, so, I don't like controversy. I don't like, it's funny. You think, oh, Bill, come on. You don't like controversy? You spend your life doing it. Well, it's God's calling. He gives you grace to do it. But yeah, you can't have a thin skin. If you're going to go into this, you know you will be attacked. And Jesus promised, right? Anybody who follows me, you will be persecuted. They hated me. Guess what? They will hate you. So part of the job description, sorry. If you want to really live a quiet and peaceful life, I don't suggest you do what I do or what you do, right? Not a good career path if you're going to, you just want to take it easy and have a good time, have everybody love you. Just don't speak out. Don't worry about what's happening in the world. Don't voice your concerns. It'll be fine. Well, temporarily, until we're all in the gulag. Anyway, but let me give you a good, encouraging story, right? I got a lot of haters out there, a lot of trolls, a lot of hate mail. So let me tell you the story of one guy who was really the epitome of a hater. I think he was in England, homosexual, atheist, right? He had all the ticks on he would always send in horrible comments, right? Just really nasty, vile, ugly, horrific comments. So at first I'd try to debate with him and, reason with him. But after a while, quickly in this business, you learn to discern, right? Is this guy open, asking honest questions, in which case he needs an honest answer? Or does he just like to argue and, he's just a troll, he's just out to get you? So you learn who's who. So I stopped printing his comments. But they kept coming for years. He hated me so much, he actually set up an entire website devoted to nothing but attacking me, right? He had a really gruesome picture of me on the page. I never looked at it. I'm not a masochist. Why, I don't want, I was aware that it was there, but I didn't spend time looking at it. But he would, every day he'd post horrible attacks, lies about me. I'm the worst guy since Hitler. In fact, Hitler was probably better if you compared the two of us. So anyways, he had this website. So that was on for years and years. One day I got a comment, came through. All my comments I have to moderate first before I post them. And I thought, oh, here he is again, back again. Oh, dear. Richie, his name was. And it was quite amazing. He said, Bill, I've been doing some thinking lately. I've taken down my website. I realized everything I was doing and attacking you was really dumb and stupid and a waste of time. And, I'm not into that anymore. And, if you can find it in your heart to forgive me, that was a dumb thing to do. And, something like that. And I thought, wow, he was my biggest hater. It's kind of like a Saul Paul conversion almost. So I wrote back straight away, said, mate, of course I forgive you, of course. Such wonderful news to hear that you're maybe, shifting a bit, rethinking a bit. And he wrote back and he said, I was in tears. You really forgave me? After all the stuff I did to you and said to you, you forgave me? So I said, well, I'm looking now to find a Bible. I think I'll look for a church somewhere here in England. And I think I actually wrote up his story somewhere on my website. So I'm not quite sure where he's at now. So whether he became a Christian or he was on a journey to becoming a Christian. But I tell folks, hey, it's all worthwhile. If I can get 5 years of mud and dirt and filth and have entire websites devoted to attacking me and lying about me, if once or twice, maybe every couple of years, one of these guys comes around and says, wow, thank you for what you do, and thank you that you haven't thrown me under the bus. So I think it's funny. In fact, I still have plenty of other trolls who send in hateful comments, but I think it's funny. They're reading my stuff in order to spit their venom and hatred. Wow, that's a dangerous thing to do. When you read truth, guess what? It can stick. Right? C.S. Lewis had something about that. It's a dangerous thing when you're an atheist, and he was an atheist for a long time. He said there's little snippets of truth everywhere. If you're not careful, it's going to smack you in the face. So later he did become a Christian. He said I was the most reluctant convert in all of England. But yeah, truth has a way. I mean, you say, what can we do? How do we get the stories out? But truth, share truth. Solzhenitsyn, the great Russian dissident, right? He said, one word of truth will outweigh the whole world. 72 years and Marxism fell. The wall came down, 1989. Truth was spoken, truth was lived. We thought it would never happen, but it did. So yeah, let's keep speaking truth. And if they're hating on you, well, they still have to read some of your truth, and it might wear off on them. It might do some good. And of course, you have the extra benefit. If you are a Christian, you can pray, ask God for his supernatural help. So yeah, it's a war. We dare not take it lightly. It's an all-out battle, really, life and death battle that we're now in. And this is what, I'm an old guy, 68. I've never seen things as dark in my life as I see right now in the West. But it's possible God can turn it around. But he's going to need Joshua doing these neat podcasts. He's going to need me writing another article tomorrow. And he's going to need all of your listeners, one way or another, to get involved. Simply be concerned is a good start. Does this bother you? Does this worry you? Oh, good. That's a good place. Most people don't care. So at least if you care, well, then you just say, okay, what am I good at? Am I a filmmaker, poet, actor, artist, whatever? There's a million things we can do. So just start doing it.
That's excellent advice. Some people might think in my podcast, oh, Josh, you have a lot of Christians. And to be honest with you, I've emailed a lot of people who aren't Christians, and it's only the Christians who seem to email back. So maybe that says something. And I also say for the non-Christians that are working on it, I mean, you said that if you're Christian, you'll have people praying for you. I can say definitely, and I'm sure you would agree, that Christians, they're not very they're not selfish with their prayers. They'll pray for anybody.
Yep.
And that's the good thing. You don't have to be a Christian to be loved by one.
Amen.